Hey everyone, it's Darth Nihilus here, back to you today with another video, and today I wanted to take the time to talk about the fact that Eminem should have released his Encore album on exactly November 8 in the year 2003 when he would have been only 31 years old at the oldest. And I wanted to start off this video by saying that I personally hate the fact that he released his Encore album the year and day that he did, which was November 12 in the year 2004 when he was 32 years old. And you know what? I don't hate the year 2004. Like, that is one of my all-time favorite years from my childhood, especially considering the fact that I was only 7 years old that year, and that was, a really just all-around classic year, considering the fact that it was in the early 2000s. But when it comes to Eminem releasing his Encore album that year, I just personally, in my opinion at least, hate the fucking fact that he released his Encore album that year when, in my personal opinion, I think he should have released it in the year 2003, especially because of the fact that he didn't even release any fucking rap album that year at all. I just strongly believe that 2003 would have been just such a perfect, excellent year for he himself to have released his Encore album instead of in 2004. And if he had released his Encore album in the year 2003 rather than or instead of the year that he actually released it, which was unfortunately in 2004, then it would have been older and therefore more classic, and not to mention the other fact that Eminem would have been a whole year younger in age. Instead of being 32, which was the age that he was at when he actually released that album of his, he would have been only 31 years old at the very oldest. And 31 is the age in which that I personally wish and strongly believe that Eminem himself would have been at the very oldest when releasing his Encore album. But of course, I wish he would have, started recording it and all that shit when he would have been like 30 years old in 2003. But sadly, that didn't happen. But you know what is interesting, though? Even though Eminem did not release a official rap album that year at all, he did release his first and only rap mixtape that he himself ever made and released in his entire rap career, and he never did another one, which is really fucking odd and strange, to say the least. He had a mixtape in 2003 that he himself released, and it was called Straight from the Lab. And I find it just really bizarre that he only released one damn mixtape is in his entire rap career. Just one. That's it. That's all he ever did as far as mixtapes go. And knowing that he only ever released one official mixtape in his whole entire fucking rap career way back in 2003, and then ever since then he never made or released another mixtape, I think it was really just pointless and unnecessary on his part to have ever made and released even that mixtape that he did. And what's interesting about his 2003 mixtape called entitled Straight from the Lab is the fact that a lot of the songs on his Straight from the Lab mixtape actually did in fact make it on to his Encore album, which was released a whole year later in 2004. And, I can kind of see and understand another reason why he probably didn't release his Encore album in the year 2003, even though he really fucking should have, is because he was mainly focused on helping 50 Cent release his debut album, Get Rich or Die Trying, and he also helped Obi Trice release his first debut album, which also came out in the year 2003. And of course, Eminem also released his first official and only mixtape that he ever released in the year 2003, Straight from the Lab. And because he was focused on those three things, he unfortunately was not able to release his Encore album that year, even though he definitely should have. And I'm sure we can all agree on that. At least I hope we can, anyways. But the other reason why I wish strongly wish and believe that he should have released his Encore album in the year 2003 rather than or instead of the year he actually did release it, which was on exactly November 12th of 2004, is because 2003 was considered to be the last and final year that Eminem himself was considered to be in the prime of his rap career. Like, a lot of Eminem fans and stans, and even people that stopped listening to his music and liking it, ever since anything that he had done or released in 2003, like, even those people will agree that Eminem, when it came to his prime, it was about like 98 or 99 to 2003, or even 1997 if you want to go back that far. And the only reason I say that is because 1997 was the very first year that, technically speaking, we as a world first heard Eminem's whole Slim Shady persona, alter ego, or whatever, in late 1997, to be exact, when he himself was 25 years old. And so, technically speaking, he was, at the prime of his rap career ever since late 1997 when he was 25 years old, because that was the year that he released his Slim Shady EP before he even released his Slim Shady LP album. And so, pretty much from 1997 to 2003, Eminem was regarded as, or considered to be, in the prime of his rap career from that, span of time. And, everything pretty much past 2003 was like the beginning of the end of his rap career, where he himself started to sadly and unfortunately decline as a rapper and lose his flame, lose his hunger and thirst, and just lose his position as, pretty much one of the greatest and best rappers of all time. And because of that, and knowing that, it would have made perfect sense for Eminem to have wanted to release his Encore album in the year of 2003. Because again, that was the last and final year that most people considered Eminem to be and regarded him as still being in his prime for the whole entire year of 2003, whether it be early, mid, or late 2003. That was the last and final year that he was regarded as being still in his prime, but it was the last and final one. So I just personally feel like it would have made the most sense for him to have released his Encore album in that last and final year that he himself was regarded as and still considered to be in the prime of his rap career. And sadly and unfortunately, he missed his opportunity to do that, which is really heartbreaking and crushing as an Eminem fan or stan, realizing that. But also, I also find it pretty fucked up that Eminem also didn't release his Encore album in the year of 2003 within a year after releasing his Eminem Show album that he released in 2002 on May 26th of 2002 to be exact, even though it should have came out on February 16 of 2002 or sometime in the month of February, as long as it would have been like on a Friday, since that's usually normally when rap albums are released and come out. And the reason I say that, his Encore album definitely, without a doubt, should have been released in 2003 within just a year after his Eminem Show album, is because if you think back to his Marshall Mathers LP and Slim Shady LP albums, those two were released within just a year of each other, which is incredible, and was. I mean, that is literally amazing, especially knowing and considering the fact that most rappers usually normally don't release albums that soon, after their first one, or that quick, if anything. Like, usually, normally, rappers don't release, like, their second album within just a year after their first one. But Eminem did do that, and I'm glad he did. He released his Slim Shady LP album in 1999, and then just 1 year later, his Marshall Mathers LP album in the year 2000. But I don't even wish or believe that his Slim Shady LP album should have been a 1999 release album, but instead should have been a rap album that would have came out and have been released in the year 1998. Not early or mid 1998, but late in the year of 1998, but still within that year, and not at all have came out the year it did, being actually 1999, unfortunately. But still, late 1998 still technically would have been pretty damn close to 1999 anyways. So still, it's about like late 1998, early 2000, which is when his Slim Shady LP and Marshall Mathers LP albums should have came out. And that's why I also say and strongly believe that when it came to his Encore album, he should have definitely released that album of his within just 1 year after his Eminem Show album. That would have been a dream come true. And that would have been just so great and perfect on his part. And it would have made the most sense, too, to have released his Eminem Show album and Encore album within just a year of each other, like pretty damn close to each other, just a year apart. And, you know, I just hate the fact that he didn't release his Encore album in the year 2003. And I hate the fact that he was actually 32 when he released that album of his, rather than or instead of just 31 years of age at the oldest. Another reason why I say that he should have released his Encore album in the year 2003, but very late in that year, to be exact. So still come out in the month of November, but a whole entire year earlier than when it actually was released. But anyways, the reason why I also say that his Encore album should have came out in the year 2003 rather than in 2004 is because if you think back and look back, even at photos, the whole entire year of 2003, Eminem was in much better shape than compared to how he looked in 2004. Like, in 2004, Eminem started really indulging on pills and drugs and alcohol and all that shit. So much to the point he had to check himself into rehab. Like, seriously. He even had to cancel his Encore tour because he was getting sick. And he was even looking very sickly and ill, like, starting and beginning in like late 2004 as well. Like from mid to late 2004, he started to gain weight because he was indulging on pills or whatever, drugs and alcohol and all that shit. And, you know, his face just started looking really sickly and like he was ill. He even had to put like fucking makeup on for doing some of the music videos from his Encore era album. Like, if you look at the music video Ass Like That, he was literally wearing fucking makeup for that music video to try to, you know, hide his sick, ill look that he had that year and at that age. But if you look back at 2003, that was the last and final year that he himself still looked very young and youthful and did not look sick. He did not look ill for the whole entire year of 2003, hell, even in early 2004. But I don't wish that his Encore album would have came out in the year 2004 at all, whether it would have came out early, mid, or late. It should have came out in late 2003 at the very latest. But for the whole entire year of 2003, he looked still somewhat healthy. Like, mostly healthy for the most part. And, you know, he still, you know, had his abs and he still looked lively. He still looked, you know, energetic. He didn't look sick or ill. He wasn't gaining weight. He didn't look like he was indulging on pills or drugs or alcohol for that matter. And so that's also another reason why it would have just been so perfect on his part if he would have released his Encore album that year, in the year of 2003. Because his Encore album, without a doubt, should have came out and been released in the year 2003. Like, honest to God, his Encore album should have been a rap album that came out in the year 2003. Late in the year 2003, but still within that fucking year. And I don't care what anyone else has to say about that fact. And, you know, another reason why I say that his Encore album should have came out in the year 2003 rather than or instead of 2004 is because if he had released his Encore album in the year 2003 rather than or instead of 2004, which is when he actually released the album of his, unfortunately, which I personally fucking hate. If he would have released it in 2003, which would have been a dream come true for me, especially, and I'm sure, you know, other fans or stans who just maybe or might agree with me on this, as I hope, then when Eminem would have taken his 4-year hiatus and break from making and releasing rap albums, instead of taking his 4-year break in hiatus from 2005 to 2008 and then coming back in 2009 and releasing his Relapse album that year, instead he would have taken his 4-year break in hiatus from making and releasing rap albums from 2004 to 2007, and then he could have came back in 2008, which would have made me really fucking happy and so glad and cheerful and at peace if that would have happened and have been the case, because then he could have released his Relapse album in the year 2008 and hopefully early 2008 and not like mid to late 2008. Like, his Relapse album should have came out in the month of February in the year 2008, when at the oldest he would have been only at the age of 35 years old and not 36, almost 37, which was the age he was at when he actually released the album of his, which I personally fucking hate, because at the oldest that I personally feel and strongly believe that Eminem should have been at the oldest when releasing his Relapse album should have been only 35. No older than that, but also no younger than that. But that will be, you know, another video for another time, and I'll talk more in depth and detail about that, since this video is like mostly and mainly about his Encore album. But one of the main reasons, and probably like one of the most reasons that actually makes the most logical sense as to why I feel and strongly believe that Eminem's Encore album should have came out in the year 2003 and not in the year that it actually did, which was sadly and unfortunately 2004, is because when he took his 4-year break and hiatus from making and releasing rap albums, as you know, so many rap fans and even Eminem fans and stans know and realized that he took in the 2000s, he could have came back earlier, like a year earlier, like instead of coming back in 2009, and that being the year that he released his Relapse album, which I fucking hate so much, he could have came back in the year 2008. But that is only if he would have released his Encore album in the year 2003 instead of 2004, because then he could have released his Curtain Call Greatest Hits album late in the year of 2004 rather than in late 2005, which is when he actually released his first Greatest Hits album. And then in 2005, he could have released the Re-Up instead of in 2006. And then, you know, he could have started recording his Relapse album in the year 2007, when he would have been 34 going on to 35. So when he would have started recording and working on his first Relapse album, he could have still been within his early 30s, which I would have loved and would have been really happy and at peace about if I would have known that he would have started recording and working on his first Relapse album in the year 2007 rather than in 2008, when he was 34 going on to 35 rather than 35 going on to 36, and then he could have released his Relapse album in early 2008. Well, at least hopefully at the age of 35 years old, at the very oldest. And, uh, one thing that is also interesting in regards to Eminem's Encore album is the fact that originally it was supposed to even come out a little bit later than it did. So when Eminem's Encore album actually came out and was released, it was released on November 12 in the year 2004, when Eminem himself at the time was 32 years old. But originally it was supposed to come out on November 16 in the year 2004. And there are even Encore wallpapers before, before his Encore album came out. And there are these old 2004 wallpapers that even say Eminem's newest album Encore in stores November 16, 2004. And the only reason why it was released earlier, like a few days earlier, is because sadly at the time Eminem's younger half-brother Nathan had a friend, so not his younger half-brother Nathan, but his younger half-brother Nathan's friend found the original track list of Eminem's Encore album laying around his mansion for some odd reason, and like a complete and total fucking idiot, he decided to leak it to the internet. And that original track list of his Encore album would have obviously and of course been way better than the Encore album that we unfortunately ended up getting. And also, Eminem had to release it earlier than when he originally planned and intended to release his Encore album, which was supposed to be released on November 16 and not November 12. And sadly, he had to release it earlier because, no thanks to his younger half-brother Nathan's friend for leaking the original track list of his Encore album to the internet back in 2004, which was a grave mistake on Eminem's younger half-brother Nathan's friend's side or part. But before I end this video, there is one last and final thing that I want to say, which is the fact that Eminem should have chose and picked a way better and greater cover for his Encore album. And after I upload this video, I'm actually going to put a link in the description and pin it to the top of my comment section of 3 different fan-made alternative Encore album covers for Eminem's Encore album that he himself definitely, without a doubt, should have chosen or went with or picked instead of the shitty ass, garbage, terrible, horrible, awful cover that he actually ended up going with. And one thing that I find incredibly painful about his Encore album is the fact that he chose such a piss poor album cover like the one he ended up going with, which really enrages me and makes my fucking blood boil so damn much. And I also find it shocking because, Eminem had so much money at the time. He had his manager, Paul Rosenberg. He had the Bass Brothers. He had Dr. Dre. He had his whole Shady Records team. He had the whole Interscope team and the whole team over at Aftermath Records as well. And yet none of them were able to help Eminem choose a way better cover for his Encore album than the shitty-ass, piss-poor one that he ended up going with instead. It just makes no logical sense. Because knowing that Eminem had all this money and all these resources, to, help and benefit him and should support him and be on his side to have helped him out, pick and choose a better cover photo for his Encore album, and yet for some odd reason, he ended up going with the shitty-ass, piss-poor cover for his Encore album that he ended up going with, which I hate and always have hated so much. And knowing that his Encore album also doesn't even have that cool of a title either. Encore is the most basic, boring, dull, generic rap album title that he himself could have ever gone with in his entire rap career. But the very least and minimum that he himself could have done would have been to have chosen a better album cover. And that is exactly what I wish he had done. Other than the fact that I also strongly wish and believe that he would have released his Encore album on November 8 in the year 2003, when he would have been only 31 years old at the oldest, instead of releasing it when he actually did, which was on November 12 of 2004 at the age of 32, even though it originally was supposed to come out on November 16 of 2004. Because it should have definitely, without a doubt, came out in the year 2003 and not fucking 2004. But, the thing that I would have also wanted different about his Encore album is that I would have wanted it to have a better track list, other than the fact that I also wish and strongly believe that it definitely should have had a better cover than the shitty ass piss poor one that he went with instead, unfortunately, which is a pain in the ass. But other than that, he should have definitely had a better track list, which the original version of his Encore album did. But instead of his shitty ass piss poor terrible horrible garbage awful song Puke on his Encore album, he should have replaced it with Bully instead of Rain Man and Big Weenie. And my first single, he should have had We As Americans, Love You More, and Ricky Tikki Talk, which originally, those three songs, which are actually on the deluxe edition of his Encore album, those three songs, We As Americans, Love You More, and Ricky Tikki Talk, were originally supposed to be on his Encore album. And they originally were on the original trackless version of his Encore album. But no thanks to his younger half-brother Nathan's friend for leaking the original Encore track list to the internet back in 2004, Eminem had to change it, and by doing so, he made it worse. But it wasn't Eminem's fault, though. So I don't blame Eminem for this shit one bit. But I wish that after that he would have made still a deluxe edition for his Encore album, but that he would have added my first single for the opening song for the deluxe edition of his Encore album, because I still personally love that song myself, at least. And I also wish he would have added Real 911 featuring Booyah Tribe and Hail Mary Remix, which features both 50 Cent and Busta Rhymes, which was one of Eminem's greatest rap diss songs ever in the early 2000s, where he rapped over Tupac's classic Hail Mary beat from 1996. And he had, himself, 50 Cent, and Busta Rhymes, three of the most greatest rappers of all time. And they really smoked Ja Rule's ass in that rap diss song, because all three of them were dissing the rapper Ja Rule at the time. And it would have been awesome if that song would have made it at least on the deluxe edition of his Encore album. It would have been a dream come true. But also, there should have been Can I Bitch, which of course, as you can tell by the name of the song, is supposed to be a cannabis diss rap song from Eminem, which would have been another great song to have had and included on either the standard or deluxe edition of his Encore album. But I would at least say put Bully and Can I Bitch both on the standard edition of his Encore album, along with We As Americans, Love You More, and Ricky Tikki Talk. And maybe also Monkey See Monkey Do, which is another great old Eminem rap song from 2003 that definitely should have made it on his Encore album. And then for the deluxe edition, my first single, Real 911 featuring Booyah Tribe, and last but not least, Hail Mary featuring 50 Cent and Busta Rhymes. So those are all the things that should have definitely been different about his Encore album. So to recap, before I end this video, his Encore album definitely, without a doubt, should have came out and been released on exactly November 8 in the year 2003, when Eminem himself would have been only at the age of 31 years old, at the very oldest. He should have chose a way better fucking album cover than the shitty ass piss poor one that he ended up going with instead. He also should have had a better track list for his Encore album with Bully instead of Puke, and then We As Americans Love You More and Ricky Tikki Talk instead of my first single, Rain Man and Big Weenie, which all sucked. Although out of those three songs, I do love my first single, but I would have preferred that being on a deluxe edition for his Encore album instead of on the standard edition version. And also, Can I Bitch should have made it on his Encore album. And also, there was another unreleased Encore song that definitely should have made it onto his Encore album, and I'm pretty sure it would have been a Christopher Reeves rap diss song. And back in 2004, on his official website, before his Encore album was released, he had a original track list, and one of the songs that even showed up on his website back in the year 2004 was a song that was going to be called entitled Christopher Reeves, which I would have loved hearing how that song would have, been or sounded. I would have also loved it. I would have also loved Monkey See, Monkey Do on his Encore album, maybe at least on the deluxe edition anyways, along with my first single, Real 911 featuring Booyah Tribe, and last but not least, Hail Mary featuring 50 Cent and Busta Rhymes. And that would have been the perfect version of Eminem's Encore album. But sadly, none of that shit happened, which is really heartbreaking. And of course, there's nothing that we can do to change that. And, this is all the more reason I hate this world, because I can't go back and change things that definitely should have been different. And, this world just really sucks ass and just sucks balls. I just wish I would have lived in an alternative world or universe where everything I wish that would have happened and been differently about Eminem's rap career would have actually been different about his rap career. But anyways, let me know what you all think in the comments section down below. I'm out.